What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. In the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the perception of success and failure has played a critical role, not just in the military strategies employed by both sides, but also in shaping the political and social landscapes of the involved nations. Today's video will be divided into 4 key sections: the psychology of success and failure in warfare, the implications of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the challenges faced by the Russian military, and finally, the broader political consequences for Putin and his administration. When analyzing the outcomes of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, it is essential to understand the broader context of what defines success, both politically and militarily. Success in war is not just about the tangible metrics like the number of soldiers, equipment, or money spent, but also about the psychological impact on the population and the political stakeholders. Humans are naturally drawn to success. We celebrate it, we align ourselves with it, and we invest in it. This attraction to success explains why the perception of victory or defeat can be more powerful than the actual results on the battlefield. Consider the example of any movie protagonist. If a character is portrayed as successful and charismatic, audiences are likely to overlook or even romanticize their flaws. In the context of war, the same principle applies. A military leader who is perceived as unstoppable, even when facing setbacks, can maintain support and morale. This is the image that Putin has attempted to cultivate since the beginning of his offensive operations, as an image of relentless, inevitable victory, where each minor loss is merely a temporary setback in otherwise unstoppable march towards success. However, this image is fragile. The Ukrainian incursion to Kursk and failed Russian offensive in the Kharkov region, this shattered the illusion of Putin's invincibility. While territory under each side's control may not have dramatically changed, the psychological impact of Ukraine's successes cannot be overstated. The Western perception of Putin's slow but inevitable success began to crumble. This shift in perception sparked debates among Western politicians and the public about the cost of supporting Ukraine and whether it was worth the investment. After all, no one wants to be on the losing side, especially in a conflict that demands significant resources and political capital. Putin's strategy relied heavily on convincing the world that he could not be defeated. He portrayed himself as a leader who, despite setbacks, would ultimately prevail. Yet, the Ukrainian counteroffensive demonstrated that his so-called inevitability was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade. The successes of the Ukrainian forces undermined the confidence that both Russian citizens and international observers had in Putin's ability to achieve his goals. This psychological victory for Ukraine is extremely important, both on the battlefield and in the broader geopolitical arena. The Ukrainian counteroffensive did more than just reclaim territory. It fundamentally altered the trajectory of the war. The offensive's success reignited support for Ukraine across the West, where sentiment had been waning due to the perceived stalemate. Public opinion in countries like the United States and major European nations began to shift, as people saw that their investments in Ukraine's defense started to pay off. The perception that Ukraine could win and win decisively galvanized political and financial support. US Senator Lindsey Graham's visit to Kiev, during which he advocated for a more aggressive stance against Russia, is emblematic of this shift. The discussion within the Biden administration about providing Ukraine with long-range cruise missiles for F-16 fighter jets further underscores the renewed confidence in Ukraine's ability to change the course of the war. This renewed support has had immediate effects. Organizations collecting aid for Ukrainian military units have reported a surge in donations, with some raising as much in a few hours as they would typically gather in a whole week. The success of the Ukrainian counteroffensive has also made it easier for Ukraine itself to recruit and equip soldiers. The difference between donating resources to a cause that seems doomed and one that appears to be on the brink of victory is huge. The morale boost among Ukrainian forces and their allies is palpable, and it has set the stage for further military and political successes. On the other hand, the counteroffensive has exposed significant weaknesses within the Russian military and Putin, as we talked previously. Putin's forces, once believed to be nearly limitless, are now showing signs of strain. The Russian army, which was supposed to be able to replenish its losses and continue its advance indefinitely, is now struggling to maintain its positions. The myth of Russian military invincibility has been shattered, and with it, the morale of Russian soldiers and citizens has taken a significant hit. The challenges facing the Russian military are increasingly difficult to overcome. From the beginning, the Russian armed forces were plagued by inefficiencies and corruption. Despite significant investments, the army has struggled to maintain its effectiveness, particularly in the face of Ukraine's determined resistance. The recent failures have only exacerbated these issues, leading to a crisis of confidence among both the troops and the Russian public. One of the most pressing issues for the Russian military is the lack of available manpower. The initial waves of volunteers and contract soldiers have been depleted, and the pool of potential recruits and candidates has shrunk dramatically. The upcoming military conscription, set to begin on October 1st, is likely to be one of the most challenging in recent history. The use of conscripts in active combat zones, once taboo, has now become a reality. And this has not gone unnoticed by the Russian population. The knowledge that conscripts are being sent to the front lines to fight and die in a war that many do not support is likely to lead to increased resistance to conscription efforts. The Russian regime's attempts to lure more soldiers with promises of high pay and benefits have also been met with diminishing returns. Those who are willing to fight for either $2,000 or even $20,000 have already been deployed, and the regime is finding it increasingly difficult to convince new recruits to join the fight, even with the offer of higher pay. The harsh realities of the war, including the high likelihood of injury or death, have made potential soldiers and their families to be very skeptical of military service. The morale among Russian troops has also been affected by the apparent disarray within the military leadership. The failures of the spring counteroffensive, followed by the setbacks in the current campaign, have created a sense of hopelessness among the rank and file. This has been further compounded by the knowledge that high-ranking officials like Sergei Shoigu have been scapegoated for these failures, leading to a purge within the Ministry of Defense. The resulting instability has only deepened the crisis within the Russian military, making it even more difficult for Putin to achieve his objectives. The failures of the Russian military have not only damaged the reputation of the armed forces, but have also had significant political consequences for Vladimir Putin and his administration. The image that Putin has cultivated over the years of a strong, decisive leader who is always in control has been severely undermined by the events of the past year and, well, these last couple of months. The Ukrainian counteroffensive has exposed the weaknesses in Putin's strategy and has revealed that he does not have a clear plan for victory. I mean, if you think about it, which plan for victory did he even have in the first place? The initial capture Kyiv in 3 days plan failed miserably. Has anything significant happened since then? Capture of Bakhmut and Avdiivka? The events that Russian propaganda was celebrating as it was a total victory in this war? The settlements that 99% of Russian population had no idea even existed 3 years ago, and suddenly this was a major victory, the major goal of the special military operation. And even then, Russian army could not take full credit for these victories. They were mostly achieved thanks to Wagner private military company. What happened since then? Well, Russian military started sending thousands of soldiers in mid-assaults, capturing 2 houses, a forest hill, and an abandoned radio tower. Russian propaganda tried to present even these as major victories, but the people of Russia did not believe them as much anymore. There was a diminishing return of celebrations with each captured object, and yet These minor advances were necessary for Putin to continue portraying the picture of a leader who will stop at nothing to achieve his goals, and the army which will never stop and never surrender, no matter what. Everything drastically changed in just a couple of days of early August. This political vulnerability is particularly dangerous for Putin, as it comes at a time when he is facing increasing pressure, both domestically and internationally. Within Russia, the public's confidence in the war effort has waned, and the initial wave of patriotism that followed the invasion has largely disappeared. The realization that the war is not going as planned, coupled with the economic hardships caused by the international sanctions, has led to growing dissatisfaction among the Russian population. They might not show it yet, but the process has already started. Internationally, Putin's standing has also been weakened. The failure to achieve a quick and decisive victory in Ukraine has emboldened his critics and has led to a re-evaluation of Russia's position on the global stage. Western leaders, who were once hesitant to confront Putin directly, are now more willing to support Ukraine and take a firmer stance against Russian aggression. This shift in the international community's attitude towards Russia is a direct result of the Ukrainian counteroffensive and the perception that Putin's regime is not as invincible as it once seemed. The political consequences of the war are likely to be long-lasting, even if the Russian government manages to suppress public dissatisfaction in the short term. The underlying issues, economic decline, military failures, and the loss of international prestige, will continue to erode Putin's authority. The shame and weakness that have been exposed by the Ukrainian offensive are not easily forgotten, and they will have lasting consequences for Putin's political future. A person who is obsessed with never showing any signs of weakness and being shamed. The recent developments in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine have highlighted the importance of perception in warfare. Success and failure are not just measured in terms of territory gained or lost, but also in the psychological impact on the people and the political consequences for the leaders involved. As the conflict continues, the lessons learned from these recent events will shape the strategies of both sides. For Ukraine, the renewed support from the West and the morale boost from their recent successes will provide the momentum needed to continue their defense. For Russia, the challenges of maintaining a failing war effort and the political fallout from their losses will pose significant obstacles to achieving their goals. The outcome of this conflict will not only determine the future of Ukraine and Russia, but will also have far-reaching implications for the global order. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed today's episode and you want to see more of them. Also, there are links down below if you wish to support my work, and if you miss ridiculous Russian propaganda, it will be on my Patreon. All the links are down below. Happy weekends and see you on Tuesday.
Twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.